The strange and mysterious history of the Ouija board. In this video, I'll discuss the backstory of the Ouija board. Was it a tool of the devil, a harmless family game, or a fascinating glimpse into the unconscious mind? The makers of the first talking board asked the board what they should call it. The name Ouija came through, and when they asked what they meant, the board replied, "Good luck." In February 1891, the first few advertisements started appearing in papers. Ouija, the wonderful talking board, boomed, a Pittsburgh toy and novelty shop describing a magical device that answered questions about the past, present, and future with marvelous accuracy, and promised never-failing amusement and recreation for all the classes. A link between the known and the unknown, the material and the immaterial. Another advertisement in a New York newspaper declared it interesting and mysterious. The mysterious talking board was sold in board game aisles today. A flat board with letters of the alphabet arrayed in two semicircles above the number 0 through 9. The words yes and no in the uppermost corners, goodbye at the bottom, accompanied by a planchet, a teardrop-shaped device, usually with a small window in the body used to maneuver about the board. The idea was that two or more people would sit around the board, place their fingertips on the planchet, pose a question, and watch dumbfounded as the planchet moved from letter to letter, spelling out the answers seemingly of its own accord. The biggest difference is in the materials. The board is now usually cardboard rather than wood, and the planchet is plastic. The real history of the Ouija board is just about as mysterious as to how the game works. Ouija historian Robert Murch has been researching the story of the board since 1992. When he started his research, he says no one knew anything about its origin, which struck him as odd. The Ouija board came straight out of the American 19th century obsession with spiritualism, the belief that the dead can communicate with the living. Spiritualism, which had been around for years in Europe, hit America hard in 1848 with the sudden prominence of the Fox sisters of upstate New York. The Foxes claimed to receive messages from spirits who rapped on the walls in answer to questions, recreating this feat of channeling in parlors across the state. Aided by the stories about the celebrity sisters and other spiritualists in the new national press, spiritualism reached millions of adherents at its peak in the second half of the 19th century. It was an acceptable, even wholesome activity to contact spirits at seances through automatic writing or table-turning parties, in which participants would place their hands on a small table and watch it begin to shake and rattle, while they all declared that they weren't moving it. The movement also offered solace in an era when the average lifespan was less than 50. Women died in childbirth, children died of diseases, and men died in war. Even Mary Todd Lincoln, the wife of venerable president, conducted seances in the White House after their 11-year-old son died of a fever in 1862. During the Civil War, spiritualism gained adherents in droves, people desperate to connect with the loved ones who had gone away to war and never come home. Opening the gates of hell was not on anyone's mind when Kennard Novelty Company, the first producers of the Ouija board, started their business. In fact, they were mostly looking to open Americans' wallets. As spiritualism had grown in American culture, so too did frustration with how long it took to get any meaningful message out of the spirits, says Brandon Hodge, spiritualism historian. Calling out the alphabet and waiting for a knock at the right letter, for example, was deeply boring. People were desperate for methods of communication that would be quicker, and while several entrepreneurs realized that it was the Kennard Novelty Company that nailed it. In 1886, the fledgling Associated Press reported on a new phenomena taking over the spiritualists' camp in Ohio. The talking board was for all intents and purposes an Ouija board with letters, number, and planchette-like device to point to them. The article went far and wide, but it was Charles Kennard of Baltimore, Maryland who acted on it. In 1890, he pulled together a group of 4 other investors, including Elijah Bond, a local attorney, Colonel Washington Bowie, a surveyor, to start the Kennard Novelty Company to exclusively make and market these new talking boards. None of the men were spiritualists, really, but all of them were keen businessmen, and they had identified a niche. According to Murch's interviews with the descendants of the Ouija founders and the original Ouija patent file itself, which he has seen, the story of increasing popularity of the board went like this. Bond brought the indispensable Peters to the patent office in Washington with him when he filed his application for petition. There, the chief patent officer demanded a demonstration. He asked if the board could accurately spell out his name, which was supposed to be unknown to Bond and Peters. He would allow the patent application to proceed. They all sat down, communed with the spirits, and the planchette faithfully spelled out the patent officer's name. Whether or not it was mystical spirits or the fact that Bond, as a patent attorney, may have just known the man's name, that's unclear. But on February 10, 1891, a white-faced and visibly shaken patent officer awarded Bond a patent for his new toy or game. The first patent does not explain how the device works, just as such that it does. That ambiguity and the mystery were part of a more or less conscious marketing effort. And it was a moneymaker. By 1892, the Kennard Novelty Company went from 1 factory in Baltimore to 2 in Baltimore, 2 in New York, 2 in Chicago, and 1 in London. The board's instant success and now, more than 120 years later, prolonged success showed that it had tapped into a weird place in American culture. It was marketed as both mystical oracles and as a family entertainment, fun with an element of otherworldly excitement. It was not only spiritualists who bought the board. The people who disliked the Ouija board, most likely spirit mediums, as who found the competition in their job, as spiritual middlemen, also purchased it. The Ouija board appealed to people from across a wide spectrum of ages, profession, and education, mostly because the Ouija board offered a fun way of people to believe in something. The 1910s and 20s, with the devastation of the World War I and the mania chaos of the Jazz Age and Prohibition, witnessed a surge in Ouija popularity. The company opened new factories to meet the demand for the boards. Over 5 months in 1944, a single New York department store sold 50,000 of them. In 1967, the year after Parker Brothers bought the game from the company, 2 million boards were sold, outselling Monopoly. Strange Ouija tales also made frequent, titillating appearances in American newspapers. In 1920, National Wire Services reported that would-be crime solvers were turning their Ouija boards for clues in the mysterious murder of a New York City gambler, Joseph Burton Elwell, much to the frustration of the police. In 1921, the New York Times reported that a Chicago woman being sent to a psychiatric hospital tried to explain to doctors that she wasn't suffering from mania, but that Ouija spirits had told her to leave her mother's dead body in the living room for 15 days before burying her in the backyard. In 1930, newspaper readers were thrilled by accounts of two women in Buffalo, New York, who had murdered another woman supposedly on the encouragement of the Ouija board messages. In 1941, a 23-year-old gas station attendant from the New Jersey told the New York Times that he had joined the army because the Ouija board told him to. Almost overnight, Ouija became a tool of the devil, and for that reason, a tool of the horror writers and movie makers. It began popping up in scary movies, usually opening the door to evil spirits, hell-bent on ripping apart the two walls. In recent years, Ouija is popular yet again, driven in part by economic uncertainty and the board's usefulness as a plot device. The hugely popular Paranormal Activity 1 and 2 both featured an Ouija board. It's popped up in episodes of Breaking Bad, Castle, Rizzoli, and Isles, and multiple paranormal reality TV programs. But the real question, the one everyone wants to know, is how do the Ouija boards work? Scientists say that the Ouija board are not powered by spirits or even demons. Disappointing, but also potentially useful, because they are powered by us, even when we protest that we are not doing it. Ouija boards work on a principle known to those studying the mind for more than 160 years, the ideomotor effect. In 1852, physician and physiologist William Benjamin Carpenter published a report for the Royal Institution of Great Britain, examining these automatic muscular movements that take place without the conscious will or volition of the individual. Think crying in a reaction to a sad film, for example. Almost immediately, other researchers saw applications of the ideomotor effect in popular spiritualist pastimes. In 1853, chemist and physicist Michael Faraday, intrigued by table turning, conducted a series of experiments that proved to him that the table's motion was due to the ideomotor actions of the participants, though not most of the spiritualists believed him. So, that's the end of our video. How did you like it? If you liked it, please make sure to show some love by clicking the like and subscribe button for more content. Also comment your views on the video. Until then, bye, and thank you for listening to me.